Welcome to City Chat on CTV. Today we have some pretty exciting news. Citizens of Columbus will have the opportunity to buy bonds from the city from October 2nd to the 3rd of 2018. Here with us, we have the city's first female auditor, Auditor Kilgore, here to talk about the new city bond sale. Megan, it's great to have you on the show today.
It's my first time. I was elected this past January, so it's my first time to spend some opportunity talking with you, and we have a really exciting project and program to share today.
So why don't you tell us about the upcoming sale?
About every year, the city of Columbus, we have major infrastructure needs. When you have a city that is as large as ours, we're the 14th largest city, we have to constantly improve and build new things like water, reservoirs, sewer, treatment plants, roadways, or sidewalk repairs. There's a constant evolution of infrastructure needs. In order to finance those needs, we really have to issue bonds. And bonds are very simply large-scale IOUs, where we will sell on pretty much an annual basis bonds to finance that year's capital needs. And so every single year we go out, we do something called a bond sale. And we traditionally will target our bonds to Wall Street, to large-scale investors. These are insurance companies, mutual funds, but big banks on Wall Street that have the big balance sheets necessary to buy. Big city, we have large infrastructure needs, and these can be very sizable amounts.
Could you kind of take us through like Bonds 101 and how they break it down of how it works?
Sure. The bonds are very simply an IOU. And basically, the city of Columbus will sell a bond to a private party, and in return, that party will give us money in order to finance our needs, our capital needs this year. And what happens is these bonds could be for 5 years, they could be for 10 years, they could be for 15 years. You think about the types of projects that we have in our bond sales. We spend a lot of time, the auditor's office, with our folks upstairs in the mayor's office under the division of our Department of Finance and Management, and we figure out what are our capital needs for this year, and then we figure out what's the best way to finance those projects. As you know, you think about all of the growth the city of Columbus has had in the last few years. Mm-hmm. It takes a lot of infrastructure to be able to not only support our existing population, but to provide for those populations in the future. And so bonds are very simply loans, IOUs. There's a set interest rate. There's repayment. What's something special, though, that's about municipal bonds, which is what the city sells, is that municipal bonds often come with a tax-exempt benefit, meaning that oftentimes investors, if they buy those bonds, will be able to they won't have to pay taxes on the interest earned.
Oh, wow.
For both federal and state purposes and local. And so that's something that's very unique about municipal bonds. And traditionally, again, this is what's exciting to talk to you about today, we focused really our transactions on Wall Street. And so what I'm really pumped about sharing with you today is why we're bringing this down to a community level.
Yeah, so why are you guys, doing this?
When you take a step back, you look at, we were talking a little bit about your academic background. There's been an uptick in the last few years that I'll call the democratization of public finance, where you think about public budgeting. You think about the number of opportunities citizens have to get immediately involved in governance. And that's through technology, online communications, things like that, even social media. City of Columbus used to sell bonds to individuals. We used to really make an effort to do so. Because of not only the magnitude, the record keeping, the paperwork, as you can imagine, bonds trade hands all the time. We're not equipped to be able to function as a Wall Street firm where we can keep track of all of that. So it's really been many years since we've had a pointed effort to try and include local citizens in the bond issuance process. To be quite honest with you, I was inspired two different ways. So what we do is every 4 years or thereabouts, we ask the voters to support a variety of projects. Amazingly, and this is a testament to the leadership in our community, we've had a lot of longstanding leaders like Auditor Dorian, Mayor Michael Coleman, leaders on council who have been in place for many years. That relationship, that longevity has really led to a brilliant relationship between the citizens and our government. Since 1956, we have asked the voters for their approval 96 different times. They have authorized 90 of those voted bond issues. It's really spectacular, and it's a point of pride for the city. So that's number one. You know, when you have a relationship with your voters that care deeply about the city and its governance, very, very clear expectations that this will be well received by the community. Number two is, over the last, probably year, the Save the Crew movement has been really inspirational. When you've had thousands of local citizens band together to say, we will buy an ownership in the Crew. If the Crew will stay, we will help buy an ownership. And so as auditor, my senior team and I really took a step back and said, how do we capitalize upon this opportunity to better engage the citizens? And so what we've done is traditionally bonds are sold in $5,000 denominations. And so that's why, especially in large amounts, or a City of Columbus, large city, we often have bond sales in the hundreds of $1 million range. It often goes to Wall Street, and it kind of bypasses what I will call local retail opportunities. Retail is defined as mom and pops, people like yourself, myself, who are individual investors who may want to buy bonds for their personal portfolios. Right. That's the definition of retail. So what we did is we said, how do we eliminate the barriers to engaging citizens or allowing more citizens to easily buy the City of Columbus's bonds? And so we worked with our partners on the investment banking side to be able to bring these denominations down to a low point of $1,000 per bond. And if I had my druthers, we'd go a little bit lower. The problem with going lower is every bond has a cost of issuance attached to it. So as auditor, I had to be mindful. I'd love to go to a lower denomination, but we have to be aware that it would carry an additional cost. And so to be fair to the taxpayers, $1,000 was that right level for a denomination. So tomorrow, what we're going to do is on September 19th, we're going to roll out our Invest in Us campaign. And this campaign is going to educate citizens all over Central Ohio that this is an easy way, if they want to invest in their city, if they actually want to help build the City of Columbus, buy our bonds, invest in our capital projects, and earn a little bit of investment earnings, and maybe, depending upon which bonds they're interested in buying, have some of that tax-exempt benefit. They're going to be able to start the process tomorrow, September 19th, and the actual sale date will be October 2nd. So it's really important for citizens to immediately go to our website, which is going to be very educational. And it's going to list already the participating brokerage firms. What we try to do is we try to canvass all of the retail brokerage firms in the Central Ohio area to see where our citizens and our residents already had existing accounts, to try and eliminate the complexity of this. So for example, included in our list of brokerage firms are, I'm going to read these aloud because we can circle back to the website too, Bank of America Merrill Lynch, Goldman Sachs, Loop Capital, PNC Capital, RBC Capital, Fidelity, Fifth Third, Huntington, KeyBank, Morgan Stanley, Stifel Nicholas, and UBS. If a citizen has an account already at any of those firms, it's very easy. They can either go electronically onto their firm's websites or pick up the phone and call their broker, and it's going to be already set up. All they have to say is, we're really interested in buying the City of Columbus's bonds, and it's going to be a very easy transaction. What we tried to do was go ahead and set up an existing relationship with each of these firms so they know the timing, the amounts, the types of bonds that are available, and help, again, eliminate any of the barriers for a citizen wanting to buy a bond. Again, the denominations are pretty simple, $1,000 or $5,000, depending upon which bonds the investor wants. And call your broker, visit the website. In the event that you have a brokerage with another firm, the website will help walk you through. You can pick up the phone, call your particular broker, and say, what are my options to buy Columbus bonds? And maybe it'll work out that way too. But we've really tried to go and think outside the box to eliminate all the barriers to participation.
The planning that went behind this, how long has it taken the city and its team to come up with how you guys are going to strategize and distribute these bonds?
It's really fun too, because working in finance, a lot of times people assume that I teach at Ohio State. I teach a public finance class at Ohio State.
That's great.
And a lot of times folks will say, this world of finance, they think about it just being numbers or accounting and behind the scenes. But it's really, finance is about telling the story of a city. We have to be very thoughtful as to how we plan for and finance our big capital projects. And so all the time we're thinking about this. The Department of Finance and Management is constantly working on what they call the capital budget. That is the strategic plan for how every single year they plan to pay for all of the various projects that we need. And we do link it up to things like population growth estimates or expectations as to how people might be moving around the city. Our city is large. We're about 225 square miles. And so capital projects are a very necessary part of our daily conversation. But when you have a program like this, it really helps bring the 14th largest city down to the citizens level where any of us can feel immediately engaged with our government structure. We're buying a bond that is going to help the city of Columbus build its future.
So what does a AAA bond rating mean, and who else has one?
It's probably the question I get the most. Why do we care about our credit ratings? What does a AAA bond rating mean? It's one of the biggest points of pride that our city has, and it is a testament. We both have a personal credit rating. A bond rating is the same thing, but it's assessed to the government. And so we have 3 credit rating agencies that are the largest nationally: Moody's, Standard & Poor's, and Fitch Ratings. All 3 of those entities will rate us, and it's a very detailed process. They look at just about every aspect of the city's financials, and they look at things like the management, the governance structure, the checks and balances. AAA is the highest that you can possibly go. And so the fact that we have 3 AAA ratings is really a stamp of approval from those credit rating agencies to say they have the full faith in our financial management. And it's a really big deal. It's something that we're very proud of around here.
Talked a little bit about some of the projects that are being funded from the sale. Sure. Is it subject to change throughout the year?
That's a great question. And yeah, with any large urban city, projects will always change because needs are going to change. Population movement will change. I want to get back to something that I think is really important. Citizens will ask this from time to time too. Why should I care about a AAA bond rating? And the reason why you should care is because just as you would have if you were to go and you would get a mortgage, your credit rating is going to dictate what your interest is going to be, how much the bank is going to charge you to borrow that money. A AAA bond rating, because it's the highest level of credit, that's going to create the lowest cost of borrowing for the city. In return, when the city passes on with these projects, whether they be water projects or transportation projects, what we pass on to the citizens or the taxpayers is also the lowest cost of borrowing. And so that's why everyone, every citizen, every resident in Columbus should be aware that having this highest credit rating from these 3 agencies means that our cost of borrowing and what gets passed on is absolutely the lowest possible it can be, which is pretty spectacular. Projects that we typically finance are going to be in this transaction. Transportation's a big one, and that's because we joke a lot. You can't just build 15 feet of a road, and when you look at our square mileage, you look at how much population. On average, we're bringing in about 50 new people a day, and so this bond sale is largely one of population growth and economic support. We have to make sure our infrastructure is meeting the needs of our existing citizens and those also who are still moving in. All of the projects included in any of the city's bond sales have long useful lives of 5 years or more. We never borrow for operating purposes. We're prohibited from doing so. So we're only looking at issuing bonds for projects that are 5 years or longer in terms of their lives. So you'll see a variety of different, we call them amortizations. That means the length of the bonds. So that, 10 years, are they 15 years, are they like 20-year bonds, as in the water and sewer type projects.
Okay, and so on the October 2nd and the 3rd, citizens will have to predetermine how many years they want to buy in.
Absolutely. So what I would recommend is if a citizen is watching this from home and they say, wow, this is a really interesting opportunity to invest in Columbus. And it is. You generate some investment income. You might get some tax exempt benefit depending upon which of the bonds you buy, if they're tax exempt or the taxable bonds. Which is great, especially for investors who are looking to mitigate some of their tax exposure. But it's also a way to feel really connected to your city. And so depending upon which area attracts the local investor, go to the website first. We have listed on the website the bond offering documents, which are really detailed. We also have a one-pager that will help explain really quick, succinct steps how to buy the city's bonds. We have a list of the participating brokerage firms. We have copies of the city's rating reports. I can't express this enough. It's important, even though we're here talking about the city of Columbus and a lot of the residents here understand the city, you should still just do your homework and understand what you're buying. And so look at the terms of the bonds. Look at the length of the bonds. Figure out, talk to your broker. Perhaps if the resident has a financial advisor, it's a great opportunity to pick up the phone and say, is this something that would fit into my portfolio? And depending upon all of those answers and the education, get comfortable with how much makes sense to add to the respective portfolios and what types of lengths, meaning number of years that the bonds would be outstanding for. And so all kinds of terms, we offer lots of different options. And so it really is on an individualized basis what makes the most sense for those investors.
So the last time that they had a bond sale was like in the 80s, was that right?
That we tried to sell directly to individuals.
Individuals, okay.
Yeah.
And then, so how is this 2018 sale going to be different from recent projects and, back when you were doing individual sales?
Sure. So every year since, the city started issuing bonds, in some way an individual like yourself could buy the city's bonds. It's more about how difficult it was. And so in the past few years, we've really worked almost exclusively with our Wall Street firms, because when you think about municipal bonds, especially the sizes of projects that we have and the sizes of our transactions, the folks that are wanting to buy our bonds are the big insurance companies. They're the big mutual funds. And so we, as a AAA rated issuer, the City of Columbus has never had a shortage for interested buyers. What we're doing differently this year is trying to eliminate all of the hurdles, the prior hurdles, for a citizen being able to very easily pick up the phone, call a broker and say, I really want to buy a Columbus bond. That's the sole difference about this transaction. Number two, from a economic standpoint, traditionally we've worked in the denominations of 5,000. We're bringing it down to 1,000. That's also something that we've, to the best of my knowledge, we've not done in the last probably 30 years. And so that's really special. And I think that's a point where hopefully we're able to attract some individual investors here in our community or our surrounding communities who want to invest in the city and find that Columbus's bonds might be a good use of their portfolio.
So how can residents participate, and why should they?
Absolutely. First of all, go to columbus.gov/buybonds. That is the website. That'll go live on the September 19th as well. Okay. And so hopefully when this program is aired, everything will be live. So you'll see a lot of campaigns. We're hoping local media will spend some time talking about stories too. So the website, columbus.gov/buybonds, will list all of the steps necessary to easily buy bonds. But to be very, very succinct, if you are interested, all you do is you pick up the phone, you call your brokerage, you call your banker and say, this is something that I really want to buy. Can you educate me a little bit on how to do so? What are the terms? And let's talk about what might make sense.
You've made this so accessible and so user-friendly in a sense that it's just it's like a harmonious investment to partake in. We really appreciate you talking to us about this opportunity today and offering this to the public. Thank you.
Thank you, Josie. Thanks for having me today.
From October 2nd to the 3rd of 2018, residents can invest in the future of Columbus by purchasing bonds from the city. You can go to www.columbus.gov city.gov/buybonds for more information. Thanks for watching City Chat on CTV.